Calamity. An event causing great and often sudden damage or distress. A disaster. To most of you, this definition probably isn't what you think about when you hear the word, but instead of the Terraria mod with the funny eyeball and really edgy lore. I mean, can you be blamed? The Calamity mod is like if Jesus came down and was like, you know, the second coming? Well, that's not really happening anymore, so instead you're gonna have this, and it's just as fun.
Disclaimer, in no way should anyone take this seriously. The previous statement was intended to be just a funny joke to appeal to the masses, algorithm, and Eldritch Beast.
Now, let's back up a bit. If you're new to Terraria modding, or just Terraria in general, it is important to know a few key details before we dive into this rabbit hole of a mod. Terraria is sort of known as this survival slash progression slash sandbox type of video game, which is a lot of different words with different meanings. But in general terms, this means you want to not die for as long as possible and upgrade yourself from this puny little mortal to this untouchable demigod. In addition, it also provides you with a boatload and a half of creativity, from furniture to blocks to really obscure placeables that, you know. However, what makes Terraria great deserves this whole other video, which I have plans for later on. But with such an expansive play type, the community around the game has only thrived and grown since its conception, as well as the modding scene around it. And out of the sea of regular slash mediocre looking mods, the Calamity mod shines the brightest. No matter if it's the survival, progression, or creativity part of the mod, it delivers on all these fronts and then tenfold more, and then 100 times more, and then like a billion. Half a decade of sweat, blood, tears, and other fluids have been poured into this behemoth of an addition, and the results are as clear as a stainless steel mirror. With such a high status, it got me thinking, is this really the best mod out there? And is it really chalked up to what it's supposed to be? Sure, just looking at gameplay of it makes Terraria look like 2D Minecraft, but there's always more to a story than just its cover. So, what's the best way to objectively look at a mod, judge how it is, and with only the right opinions? A mod review, of course. However, I don't know if I'll be really calling this a mod review, maybe more like a mod analysis, mod overview, showcase. I'm not really sure, we'll see. And because I'm definitely going to get at least one comment about this, yes, this video is a sort of tribute to Game Raiders 101's Calamity mod review video, slash his mod review series in general. Since I want to start, maybe, you know, revive it a bit and add on to more and more with a lot more mods, since, you know, he hasn't really uploaded one in the series in a while. But without further ado, it is finally time for me to give my opinion about the Calamity mod. But first, the Calamity mod is a content-adding modification for Terraria that adds many hours of endgame content and dozens of enemies and bosses dispersed throughout the vanilla game's progression. More specifically, this includes several harder difficulty modes, 5 new biomes and new structures, an entirely new class, a new kind of leveling mechanic, more than 40 new songs made by DM Dokuro and other various composers, and over 50 recipes for previously uncraftable items and other assorted changes to vanilla gameplay. With dozens of bosses, hundreds of items, and a lore more complex than Dark Souls itself, it's the perfect addition for someone who wants to completely overhaul the game. While this may drive away some more vanilla-oriented players, most who do start to play Terraria modding tend to choose Calamity with an overwhelmingly positive response. While it wasn't my first mod personally, it was certainly one of the first I started playing with my earliest playthrough dating back to around early 2017, I think April, if we're being more exact. Now, seeing the growth the mod has gone through for the past 4 years has been a really surreal experience, and with the Draydon update, Calamity has cemented its position. But no matter if you started a day ago or first went through the mod 5 years ago, there's always been a certain appeal to it that no one else can really match. Now, what to talk about first when we're talking about Calamity of all mods? I know. That's right, baby. We're in the game world now. Yeah, no, I thought I would maybe come into an actual world in order to show off some of the more experiencing features, such as bosses, weapons, music, and stuff. Well, not music, but you get the point. So first off, what is a mod without a set of weapons? And if we go over here, as you can see, there are the 5 main classes in Calamity. First starting off with Melee, then Magic or Mage, following with Ranger, Summoner, and finally Rogue, aka Calamity's exclusive, or should I say reworked subclass of Throwing, as you might know from Terraria 1.3.5. But first, what we're going to do is take a look at 3 of the weapons from the Calamity mod for each of the classes. 1 pre-hard mode, 1 hard mode, and 1 post-Moonlord. And we're going to test them out a little bit and see if they have some unique abilities and what look like how they look and stuff. But yeah, first off, let's start with Melee. Boom. As you can see, we have started off with these 3 weapons. The Gelitic Blade, I think it's called. The Microwave, and the Muramaza. And there's no particular reason for me choosing these weapons. I just thought maybe they looked cool or that they had an interesting spin to them. And, you know, you might have an opinion like, oh, you left out this cool weapon or that one. Well, that's the great thing about Calamity. There's like a billion weapons in it. But let's start off by showing off the Gelitic Blade. As you can see, it fires off this projectile of gel or whatever you might call it. I think it's called a gel wave. Yes, of course. As you can see, it goes through blocks, which is very useful. So let's see how much damage it does. Let me also take off my armor, just in case that gives it a little bit of a bonus. So in pre-hard mode, you're going to get around, let's say, a peak of maybe 90 so damage or so. As you can see, it's kind of peaking towards 90, a little bit near 80, going down a bit. But, you know, testing weapons in Terraria, it's kind of strange, so the numbers may not always add up. But yeah, that's the Gelitic Blade. It's a very useful pre-hard mode sword, honestly, in my opinion. Next up, we have the Microwave, which is a hard mode yo-yo, I think from the Astral Biome, which is something we're going to check out in a bit. But once you throw it out, you guessed it, it makes microwave noises. And it also has this little radius where it does around 15 or so damage, as you can see. But if we, as we see in the top right corner, scales to around 500 or so damage. But honestly, the microwave concept, that's really funny. I really like that. So, you know, a little bit of funny ha-has in Calamity, of course. 10 out of 10. And finally, we'll be checking out the Muramaza, a post-Yeron sword, which is just insane. I mean, like, look at this. It's literally just like an animation of this huge ass sword swing. But as you can see, doing massive amounts of damage. And this is like without armor or any accessory upgrades at all. So that's pretty good, honestly, I would say so myself. But, you know, it's like I said, post-Yeron, which, you know, if you don't know, Calamity boss, that's pretty late in the game. But not only does it look cool, it is just useful in general, and it's just really cool. And that's just a little bit of a taste of melee weapons from Calamity. Next, obviously, we're going to look at Magic. And as we can see here, I have a very interesting assortment. First off, we have the Bis Shocker, which is a magic gun. And it fires an erratic lightning bolt that arcs and bounces between enemies. And I gotta say, this looks really cool. Like, look at this. It's like a lightning bolt that homes onto it, sort of. It's like, it's a bit hard to, like, home on a bit. If I take a few more test dummies and stuff, we can see this. So, I mean, look at this. It's just really cool, man. I mean, sure, the sound is really annoying, in my opinion. And I think that could be changed a bit. But, like, besides that, it's a really nice weapon that, you know, induces electricity or shock damage, whatever you want to call it. And it's pre-hard mode, which is really nice to see. Next up, we have the Arc Amaryllis, which is a flower-looking magic weapon. I know this has been in the mod for a while, since, you know, last time I played Calamity was 2019 properly. And this was still in there, so. But if we just use it a bit, as you can see, we should have these little flowers, and they eventually explode into little petals. Well, I guess you could call them either petals or pellets. And they eventually home onto a target, as you can see. And finally, we have Divine Retribution, which you might look at here and be like, hey, it's only 39 magic damage? Well, there's a reason it's only 39 magic damage. Also, it's a fire weapon. Don't know what that means. I think that was added in Draydon update. But, as you can see, it's kind of insane, I'm not gonna lie. So, you know, pretty god tier weapon, A tier, I would say. And it does a lot of nice damage. Sure, maybe not as much as Muramaza, but to be fair, Muramaza's like late post Moonlord, but I believe Divine Retribution's like the first actual boss after Moonlord. So, it gets a bit of a pass there. But still, really cool weapon in general. Next up, we have Ranger. And honestly, we have some interesting things here. And of course, if you played Calamity before, you know about the Firestorm Cannon. And if you don't, well, you actually are in for a treat, because this actually makes flares a useful ammo source. I'm not even joking. And as you can see with this, you can either have this sort of machine gun fire right here, or a shotgun output that does more damage. So it can scale up to 150 damage without any upgrades, or like a little bit under, maybe around 20 or 10 damage under with this little machine gun fire. So I would say that not only did Calamity make something previously unusable usable, but they made it with variation, and I really appreciate any mod that does that. Next up, we have the Magnus Striker, and I gotta say, this is a fun weapon, because it literally is just like a machine gun, again, like item, that just goes sploosh everywhere. And you guys, you can see, it does some really nice damage. I believe you get this around, I don't know, Leviathan or something. So it's very useful in my opinion, and you know, really cool to use. And of course, what would Ranger be without some kind of awesome bow? And as you see, the Heavenly Gale, which I believe is the best bow in the game. I could be wrong. I mean, I think there's a crossbow or something that's better, but if we'll just one look at this, and you know, does a lot of damage, including some tornadoes with huge DPS, like 11,000 at its peak. That is very nice. Honestly, if this doesn't show that Ranger is the best class, I don't know what does. But yeah, you know what? Ranger, awesome. Next up, we have Summoner. However, I'm going to be putting on a few accessories for Summoner, just because I want to maybe see sort of how maybe like many accessories you do versus one, since, you know, sometimes with one summon item, it's like really lame, but then you have like 20 of them, and it's just super useful and awesome. First, we have the Storm Jaw Staff, which summons a little Storm Jaw Antlion, or Storm Antlion, I believe, that both does melee damage or contact damage to enemy, and it spawns in these little electrical like flingy things, which is really nice. But let's say we put this on to give us 2 more, which in my opinion you would have 3 summon slots by the time you get this. As you can see, it does pretty nice damage overall, like 50 for a summoner item. Really nice. So that's very useful and cool. Next up, we have a hard mode summoner item called the Gastric Belcher Staff, which is a Leviathan weapon and summons aquatic aberrations to protect you. And it says with every 3rd attack, it fires bubbles, which, you know, is its own little funny thing, haha. I would say by this time as well, 5, heck, I would even go with like 7 minions. So we just bring 1 out. As you can see, it fires these little things and the bubbles every 3rd shot, like right now. But if we bring out multiple of them, as you can see, they do work. Like, they do work. And this is without any summoner access. Okay, that's a lie. But if we, I mean, you can like home on to different enemies. Like, Calamity's done a really good job with their minions, in my opinion. Like, they don't just home on to random enemies and stuff. They actually are useful. And I don't know, I like this one because the funny burp noise. I think that's funny. Not to mention, it just looks really cool. So yeah, that's Gastric Aberration, everyone. And third and finally, the Flamestead Ring, which is a bit of a strange item, but if we do this, as you can see, you turn into a freaking transformer. I mean, how cool is that? Let's take off my armor. Look at this. Look at how cool this is. Oh my god. And you could like change modes and stuff to like, okay. Oh wait, no, I remember this now. Yeah, okay. I forgot. You actually have to use a weapon in order to use weapons. All right, so you can do this. That is insane damage. Like, oh my god. Or you could become Swordman and go beep boop bop bop. Another thing you can do is have this really cool looking little like spaceship flying thing that has a little bit of a recharge, which is really cool to look at. Or you could turn into baby mode activated. But yeah, basically you get this really cool laser. As you can see right here, you get a really cool rocket looking thing. You have this amazing looking animation, and then you have like super sword mode or baby mode too. Don't forget about baby mode, very important. And overall, really fun item to use, even if it's just endgame. So yeah, that's Summoner. In my opinion, really cool class. Like, I really appreciate it. All right, and finally, but definitely not least, we have the Rogue class. And honestly, if you've played Calamity for a little bit, you would know about the Rogue class. But if you're maybe new to it, basically Rogue is sort of like Thrower, but more fleshed out. Like, it has its own stealth system. It has its own special like bonuses kind of stuff. It's a very neat class, and I'll talk a little bit more about later. But I'll be honest, I don't want to get too much into detail in this episode, so if you maybe want to learn more about the class in general, I would recommend checking out the wiki. It has a lot of information, and it's really useful. Not to mention, it just, like, you know, just tells you what kind of things do what and stuff, so. And first of all, we have the pre-hard mode throwing item, the Crystalline. This is a classic throwing item. And one thing you might notice, I'm not using any consumable throwing items. Who likes consumable throwing items, my guy? But let's try to test this out. As you can see, you can throw it and it splits into a few different daggers. Okay, you know what? I forgot. Yeah, I have these armor off for a reason. But as you can see, you can either split it apart by throwing it and it splits apart in midair, or you could throw it against the wall and it has this sort of split effect. A little bit. I don't know. It's not very reliable, but as you can see, it does some pretty nice damage for like a decently early weapon. I believe you can get this like pre-boss. So that's nice. The second weapon we have is the Alpha Virus, which is a Plague Bringer Goliath weapon. And as you can see, this just looks really cool. As you throw it, you get this little bomb of gas cloud effects. And eventually it explodes into these little particles that circle around enemies and will do some contact slash, you know, lingering damage to them, which is really nice again. And finally, the Nano Black Reaper, which is, I believe, a post-calamitous weapon. Post-supreme calamitous. And you could tell this is post-escal, cause I mean, like, is there any other indicator that you need? Look how fast the rate of fire is. Bro, the DPS meter can't even tell what damage this is. Oh my god. Although it is really high, nevertheless. So, really, really cool. Oh my god. But yeah, so those are some of the weapons of Calamity. And like I said, it's a very minuscule amount of weapons. Okay, wow, that's loud. So you're definitely not going to see all of them. And I would definitely recommend, as I said, that both check out the wiki or check out maybe a Let's Play or two of Calamity. Or if you don't want to be spoiled, you could play it yourself. But next up on the agenda, we have to go look at some bosses. And you can't forget the first of the boss has to be the funny mushroom boss. So I converted this entire jungle biome into Mushroom Land. Now, that's a low joke. I actually only converted about half of it to Mushroom Land. But, of course, that means we can spawn our good old friend Crabulon, who is a post-eye boss, but pre-worm. So he's not too tough, but there is an interesting catch. He's a crab, but mushroom. And let's see that in action. As you can see, our boy Crabulon spawns in. 4,800 health, an expert. And he's just chilling here, like, he doesn't care. But as soon as you attack him, he kind of goes after you. However, that was a really bad showcase because he died immediately. I'm taking my armor off. Second attempt, go! It's my boy. As you can see, he's just a giant crab who walks around and shoots mushrooms at you. He even has some cool animations and jumping skills. Hell yeah, boy. But if we hurt him a bit, he's going to get a little bit angry. I'm not going to lie. Like you can see right now, he's not the biggest fan. He's summoning a lot more mushrooms and stuff. And honestly, like, you know, you would expect this from expert mode. Just like kind of basic looking boss, basic attack patterns. But usually you would fight him underground. So it would be a lot harder to kind of evade his like movements and stuff in the mushrooms as well, which is really interesting. But if we just get him down a little bit more, I do believe we do experience a little bit of a tough-up phase. As you can see, though, he is summoning a lot of mushrooms, which could be annoying for early players to deal with. Yeah, as you see, he's doing a little bit of a bullet hell phase, which, you know, Calamity's pretty infamous for with their bullet hell bosses. But still, very interesting to see a little bit of a challenge in the early bit of the game. You know, one that's different from your regular Terraria experience, at least. Also, we got the trophy, Pog. But yeah, Crabulon, not too tough of a boss, but has some interesting quirks such as the little mushrooms, the bullet hell mushrooms, and having a little bit of a, you know, jumping phase, which is pretty funny. But next, we're going to look at a hard mode boss, aka the Plague Bringer Goliath, in which we have to move about 60 feet over, I would say. So, right around here is good. But if we just use this, boom, as you can see, we get this sick-looking Queen Bee copy that has really weird noises, but, you know, it kind of makes sense if you know the lore. And it just shoots around a bunch of stuff and does Queen Bee dashing and stuff. Also, this is just, it's literally just better Queen Bee, in my opinion. So let's just damage our good old friend Plague Bringer a bit, because he gets kind of insane. Like, yeah, he gets kind of I'm going to end all of existence mode. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting boss. As you can see, a lot of projectiles that you have to avoid, and it's way worse than yeah, this is what I'm talking about, because at a certain point you just get to bullet hell, especially with all the projectiles and the boss itself you have to avoid and the homing. But honestly, it's a lot of fun in my opinion. Nice AI patterns. cool looking, as I was saying, and challenging enough to you actually like the boss when you beat it. And it doesn't take you 20 years. So, sorry, Plaguebringer, but we gotta move on. Bye-bye. Also, the music is really cool. I'll talk more about that later. But seriously, so cool. Oh my god. Partially, the bosses I've chosen also have music interests, like Crabulon and Plaguebringer. They're higher up on my tier list, I would say. But next, and like a one you may have heard of, is the funny worm guy, the dog. But you might be, what's so menacing about dog? His actual name is Devourer of Gods, which, you know, debatable. But he is a pretty cool boss, because as I'll show you right now, boom. You are no god, but I shall feast upon your essence regardless. Yup, there he is. Also, he makes JoJo noses, because why not? DOG is the giant worm boss everyone knows from Calamity. Basically, he just goes up in the sky, spins around a bit, and when the background turns purple, he's gonna come after you. Like, if we just look on the map a bit. Whoa, okay, no, that was a tail. He comes after you, dashes a bit, and honestly, pretty infamous for being bullet hell as well. So let's try to get him down a bit, because he, as well as many other Calamity bosses, has multiple phases. And even just in the beginning, we can see multiple of these attack patterns, you know, such as the bullet hell there, the dashing attacks. And when you get to around 50% health, he gets into this little portal and comes back out a new god. The true Devourer of Gods. It's not over yet, kid. And he's just bigger and better. Let's be honest. Oh, Barip the Goblin Tinker. I guess he saw that coming. Also, every time you get hit by his head, he makes a funny quote. And it's gonna get insane, trust me. This boss does not pull any punches. That's why. Because you have actual bullet hell, which is kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, and teleportation, because he's the Devourer of Gods. No reason needed. Could they have done, like, you know, a better job with design? Sprite-wise, I think it's perfect. You know, lore-wise, did he have to be a worm? I don't think so. But it's, whatever. It's Terraria's thing. They have worm bosses. That's what we know. And when he gets lower at health, he spawns these cosmic guardians to come attack you and help him. I mean, to be fair, they're kind of weak. Like, Eternity basically wrecked that guy. But yeah. Boom, he is dead. But in all, like, honesty, in actual all honesty, he has some pretty tough AI patterns that are, you know, you eventually learn. He has, you know, a pretty interesting lore, in my opinion, and he drops some pretty fun items. So overall, good boss. Would I rate him as highly as some of the other ones? No, I think he's pretty overrated in the community, but there's a reason he's popular among everyone. Anyways, so that's nice and all. But, is that truly the end? Have we really seen Calamity's peak in bosses? No, we have one super boss left to fight. The Lord! I'm just kidding. That guy was an April Fool's joke, and he's gone. Anyways, what I actually meant is we have to go fight our good old friend Eidolon Worm. And if you know Calamity, you know he's the funny dungeon guardian of this mod. And what do I mean by that? You basically spawn him in through strange means, and he's very hard to kill. And I'm in God mode, and I've been in God mode for most of this. But if I wasn't now, I'd be killed instantly. So you'll see what I mean, though. What you do to spawn this boss is either by just being lucky and waiting for him to spawn in the Abyss, which is a really cool, funny biome, or you have to use a teleportation device within the Abyss. And since we're now here, if I use the normality relocator, as you can see, the funny worm is here, and the sickest music too. But let's actually take the fight up here where we can stand a chance. He's just again, Calamity has the kind of thing with giant worms, which is whatever. But look at these kind of attacks. You got this lightning attack, you got a charge attack, which I think is really cool. He spawns in mini Eidolon Worms, aka juvenile Eidolon Worms you would find in the Abyss, who, you know, do their funny teleportation stuff, which sucks. And this guy is really hard to take down as well, because he also spawns Idolus, which spawns these ice ball things. He summons shadow balls. He summons basically everything the lunatic cultist summons, but like worse. Let's just say that, because there's lore behind that. But you know, I think I'm gonna skip this a little bit. Oh, he's literally gone. We didn't have to do anything. He's just dead. Anyway, so that was good old friendly Eidolon Worm. He basically is the final challenge. So if you want to literally spend an hour grinding down a boss, he's what you're looking for. Oh, but next up, we have something interesting to show. First of all, frick this rain. Second of all, we're going to switch a little bit back to some voiceover, because I realized while making the video that this section where I looked at the biomes was a little bit too long. So I decided to condense it down a little bit so that, you know, this video isn't an hour long. First off, we have the Sulfuric C Biome, a biome that replaces one of the oceans of the edge of the world. And basically, it has just basically this brown / green waterishly looking biome that has a specific event attached to it called the Acid Rain, which has 3 levels: one basically post-eye, one post-aquatic scourge, and one post-poltergeist, with mini bosses, some enemies, and even a specific boss attached to it, the Old Duke. And honestly, I'd say this biome both has a nice feel to it, but also the Acid Rain just makes it a really cool one to be in during this event. It just makes it all that cooler. Next up, we have the Abyss, which is the biome located directly under the Sulfuric Sea. And this is basically what you would call like the Hadal Zone in real life. A dark, abyss, and lightless place filled with strange and weird looking creatures, or sea monsters. And once you get lower and lower, there appears to be less and less buildings and signs of human life, and more monsters such as Reaper Leviathans, Colossal Squids, Juvenile Eidolon Worms. And eventually when you get to the bottom, you reach this one shrine with the Terminus artifact in it, aka Boss Rush, which is something else I'll talk about later. The third biome is the Brimstone Crags, which in my opinion, lamest biome, because it's just this plain flat looking land with a few houses both buried and not buried, and some shadow chests. Overall, it has some interesting lore with the whole Calamitous thing and Brimstone Elemental, and I think it has a nice feel / music element to it, but overall I think it's the weakest of the 5, especially since the older version of it actually was a crag or a mountainy looking area, but now it just looks like some slab or underworld glacier. The fourth biome is the Astral Infection biome, and this biome only spawns in once you have defeated Wall of Flesh, as a meteor from space will careen down and crash into the planet and start to spread the infection around it, sort of like a third corruption or world evil. And just like the world evils, it brings some strange and mysterious abominations and even 2 new bosses, Astrum Aureus and Astrum Deus, the latter of the which is really cool to spawn in. I'm not even joking. And overall, I'd say this is one of the more cooler looking biomes, since it actually has an element of evil to it / unknown. I think that's what a huge thing about space is that it's so unknown, and bringing an element of space to the world would bring an unknown element into Terraria, which I think is geniusly done. And the fifth and final biome is the Sunken Sea, located directly underneath the underground desert. And this is a really peaceful and serene biome filled with crystal-eating creatures. I know that's weird, but go with it. And lots of clams, insert Calamity pun here, which also brings an NPC, a mini-boss, and a lot of just relaxation to an otherwise dark and abysmal world, which I think is very much needed. Overall, I would say my favorite biomes start with the Abyss, then the Astral Infection, then the Sunken Sea, followed with the Sulfuric Sea, and finally the Brimstone Crags. Now, this might not be your opinion, and that's alright, but that's just what I think based on both the personality of the biome and how accurate I think it describes it. So let's move on to the music of the mod. Next up, we have some of the music from Calamity, and I've gotta say, this is some of the most sick-sounding soundtracks in any video game I've ever heard, like even AAA compared. I mean, sure, there are some obviously masterpieces out there, but Calamity just adds such a cool aspect, and such one that has not been seen before, that you have to acknowledge it. I mean, whether it be the heavy metal of the perforators, or the calm and serene melody of the Sunken Sea, or even the one lyrical but masterfully created track of Roar of the Jungle Dragon. It just fills every aspect that you can think of and then some. The one problem with this is that the main composer isn't really there anymore, DM Dokuro, as you may know of him, because of some community events that cause a lot of unneeded stress. But there have been people who have taken over for him, and I've got to say they've upheld his style and music sense very well, and it's just so nice to see that the mod can continue even if the greatest composer for it is still not there, which I know is a bit of a bold statement to say, but I do think he's one of the best Terraria music composers, like modded wise, I mean. Now we get into a really interesting part of Calamity, the lore. Now, while there is so much lore in the mod that it would take more than like 1 or even 2 videos to even compile it all together and make sense of the story, there are a few aspects of the lore that are directly put into game that you can like either find through direct means or just indirectly see them. Some of these examples are, after defeating a boss you will get lore items, written by the Jungle Tyrant Yerum, which is again a lore character, which gives you a little bit of information about each specific part of the game, which is really nice. In addition to this, there are some items such as weapons and accessories that will give you more insight into maybe certain people or certain locations / events in the mod, as well as NPC dialogue that, you know, makes some funny and corny references to some of the characters. Now, if we're gonna get a little more direct into it, the basic storyline, without getting too much into it, is that there is this guy named Yerum, the Jungle Tyrant, who has a few followers such as the Jungle Dragon Yeron, the Cyborg Mech Draydon, and the Witch Supreme Calamitous, who all are trying to basically hunt you down and stop your conquest of beating all of his forces, even though he's a tyrant, so he's obviously the evil one here. But beyond that, there's just so many characters and so many events and so much that happens in the mod that I would be doing a disservice just spoiling it all for you, instead of you just maybe going on the wiki to piece it together yourself, or just by understanding the parts that are in game. And that's what makes Calamity's lore so great, honestly. Anyways, back to the real game. We have a few more things to talk about before we leave. And yes, I did just do a jump cut. And I really thought that there really couldn't be a better way to discuss these things than in-game, so let's just do it that way. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, there are several different difficulty increases to Calamity. The first of them being Revengeance, which I'll let you read this all here. You can pause it if you want. But it just makes the game a little bit harder, both like before and after bosses, and like does different stuff. But if we enable Revengeance Mode, as you can see, we get this kind of box right here that says Revengeance Mode is activated. But we also have these other ones such as Malice Mode and Armageddon. Death Mode's not here because it replaces this after a while. But also, we get these cool bars at the top of our screen for Rage and Adrenaline. And how those work is when you are fighting a boss, your adrenaline increases for as long as you do not get hit. And unless you are at like 100% or, you know, have it activated, once you get it hit, you lose all your adrenaline. But basically, once you activate it, after you get all of it with like a special hotkey, you basically activate a power-up mode that does a multiplier to your damage. So when you use this, you just get an insane amount of damage up and just can shred a boss in like seconds even. However, Rage on the other hand works a bit differently. It works as you take damage. So while adrenaline may decrease to 0, when you get hit, your rage increases. Unfortunately, I totally forgot that in the latest update, they changed how rage works. So instead of it getting increased when you get hit, it increases as you get close to enemies and bosses. So just a little bit of a reminder there for you all. So it does have a nice little benefit to like no hitting bosses, or at least trying to not get hit for as long as possible. But also, if you need to fall back on like something like Rage, then that's a nice little addition. And this scales all through like Death Mode and Malice Mode as well. You will get certain items from bosses that will increase the efficiency of these, or just increase their cap in general, which is nice. But I'm not really going to go into all of Death Mode and Malice Mode. I think I'll show off the items. Here's Death Mode. Take a look at all of that just to get it in and stuff. And here's Malice Mode. Again, pause if you really want to see all of this. And if you wonder what Armageddon is, it's basically actually no hit. So if you get hit once, you die. But if you defeat the boss, you get 6 treasure bags. So nice. But Malice Mode, on the other hand, is a bit different. Because while I didn't exactly know what it was right before the update, I did discover, actually, that basically, when you kill bosses, you can get challenge items, which are just, you know, better variants of different items. Another thing I wanted to discuss is something that I brought up a little bit earlier, which was the different kind of bonuses you get from stealth, or should I say just rogue exclusive things in general. Let's take out these sets of armor, I believe, and some rogue items. As you can see, this little stealth bar charges up, and it decreases when you move around. However, when you reach 100 of it, it makes this little sound and do a special weapon attacks. Usually you have to do it for certain items. I believe Alpha Virus actually has a special attack mode. As you can see, it has these little swirly things around it when you throw it out. When you just have it regular, it just, you know, explodes eventually. And basically, like I was saying, you charge it up by just standing still or, you know, not moving as much. As for Nano Black Reaper, though, no. But yeah, there are certain weapons that gain certain advantages thanks to this. But in general, you usually have to have a stealth armor set or a rogue armor set in order to get this bar and use it properly. Which, you know, if you're playing rogue, it's not that hard. So honestly, really cool feature in my opinion. As for more rogue things, I think there's some special bonuses and stuff, but nothing as important as stealth / special attacks. So I won't go into actual detail for that, just to tell you guys that they actually do exist, and that it's an interesting mechanic. Another interesting little thing is that there are 2 events in Calamity at the moment, or at least events like original to Calamity. I mentioned the Acid Rain event earlier, and of course Boss Rush, which is the end game event where you go against every single boss, and as a reward, you get a rock. Thank you, game. Yes, let's go, a rock. However, lore wise, ooh, it's pretty spicy, I'm not gonna lie. But with the reveal of probably the greatest item in any game ever created, I think it's time to wrap it up. From the weapons to the bosses and biomes and the myriad of other additions, Calamity is a mod from Terraria that comes once in a lifetime. I mentioned at the start that Terraria is this survival progression sandbox type of game, but Calamity not only delivers on all these, like I said as we went through the video, whether it be the multitude of weapons from the 5 classes, or the progression sense from all of the bosses that Calamity adds in, or even the creativity for the music, the lore, and many other parts of it. It's just able to pack so much creativity and personality into such a small package. And you have to remember that these people are not really running off any kind of normal support. They are doing this only off of Patreon money and basic work income. This is their passion project, and it's such an obvious one, you can tell. It's almost ironic how the definition for Calamity is the exact opposite of how the mod's future and present is turning out right now. It's an absolute masterpiece. With all that being said, I would rate this as the best mod truly in the Terraria community with a 10 out of 10 rating. Whether I'll keep this kind of rating or not is up to future events, but for now, I do think that Calamity is the mod every other one should strive to be like. And there's just so much to talk about in the mod that I'm still not doing it justice with this one video. However, there's just so much content both on YouTube and Twitch. I highly recommend you go check out a lot of other people, whether it be one of Chippy's playthroughs, or maybe a Cargo live stream. No matter what it is, it's all just quality content brought from the creators, but also a huge part thanks to the mod. But anyways, that about does it for this video. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe. This video took a little bit longer than I would like to admit to make, partially due to laziness reasons, but honestly, I do really hope that you enjoyed this project. I really wanted to get this video made one day because I really appreciate all that Calamity is. And yeah, I guess that's it for now. My name is Just the Joe, and I'll see you all in the next video, mod review, or whatever else I do. Maybe live stream. See you then.